Hi again, everyone. Welcome back to the continuation of our summer program. We are going to continue with the economics relating to the production possibility curve. All right. So, for those who weren't here last week, I hope you all were able to go up on YouTube to see what you all would have missed. I would encourage you all to make your notes, and if you all have any questions, to address it as soon as possible before that exam, right? We are trying to finish off this syllabus by next year, please God, for Form 4s, Form 5s, those who are repeating the subject. So we would have stopped up to the production possibility curve last week, and I had asked you all to do some research for me. That was the production possibility curve, as well as what would increase the production possibility curve. So for those who would have missed out on the basic explanation of the PPC, what we have here on the screen, just confirming with you guys, are you all seeing the diagram big enough? You're seeing it clearly? Okay, great. So this was the first stage. Let me see if I could just go back a second. Right. So production possibility curve, we're saying it is a graphical representation of the maximum level of output that can be produced within a country's, we look at the country's state of technology, resources, all that can actually be produced will be graphically represented via this production possibility curve. We had made assumptions of the production possibility curve because for us to really analyze the resources, we're just going to assume certain things to derive this diagram. And this diagram will allow us to see, are we being efficient in an economy, or are we not being efficient? Are we wasting resources? So I know I had explained all of this last week, so I'm just recapping for those who were not here or you were not able to go up on YouTube. I would encourage you guys to please still go into the YouTube channel and listen attentively to the session that was before this one. So the first assumption is that two products can be produced. The amount of resources available are fixed. The state of technology is constant, and there's mobility in the factors of production. So we are not going to just believe that this is all what the economy can produce. We make assumptions in order to just have an idea of what we are going to illustrate via the PPC. Okay, so again, it's only assumptions. We also call it the limitations as well. And we were able to derive this production possibility curve. And please be mindful when you all are preparing for exams, you know, there are different criteria that you need to look out for in order for you to get your full marks in that exam. And that is included in your diagrams. And make sure your diagrams are large. Even though this diagram that may be showing up very small on the screen, big diagrams are able to, you know, not only express your love for economics, but you're able to show examiners the different points for you to get at least 1 mark for each correct point on your diagram. So for example, we have this production possibility curve. Two products are being produced, pizza and sugar. We have the axis label and we have our origin, which is supposed to be a 0 here. There are points on the curve, there are points inside the curve, and there's a point outside the curve. which all represents something. We looked at that as well last week, and I gave you all a basic explanation. Yeah. So you could just take a read of this just to jog your memory a little bit on these points. While I'm answering your questions, just give me a second. Right? So the points on the production possibility curve. So we have points on the curve, inside the curve, and outside the curve. Points on the curve represents efficient and attainable resources. Points inside the curve, we say it is attainable but inefficient. And anything outside the curve basically mean that, just give me a second, that we have shortages. Just give me a second. Okay, right? So we have these points inside, outside, and on the curve. So if you all have any questions, you all can let me know, because this is what, will obviously be in the exam. You may have to draw the diagram, etc. So for the homework, which I had asked you all to do, was the reasons why PPC would shift outwards. So think of somebody who, wants to produce, well, the economy that wants to produce producer goods and consumer goods. We have PPC 1 and we have PPC 2. This PPC 1 will show the original profit possibility curve. This was where we are indicating that this is the original production possibility curve. But you see, when we go to PPC 2, it shifted outwards. You see the arrow shifting outwards, and we see a new curve. This basically means that resources would have obviously increased. And there are many reasons why our resources would have increased. And that is what your homework question was, to give me reasons why the PPC would shift outwards. So were you all able to do that? I hope so. I hope you were able to do some readings on the reasons. Were you all able to look it up? So the first one we're seeing here is increase in production. This means that there will be more people to add to the supply of labor. Therefore, our human resources would have increased. As a result, we would be able to produce more. Hence, the production possibility curve will shift outwards. So we're looking at why would this production possibility curve shift outwards? Increase in population. When there's added people in an economy, that means we will have to accommodate for, satisfying so much more needs. So we will have to put out more resources to actually increase our production possibility curve. I'm seeing Nathan here as well. Yes, discovery of natural resources. That will also, which is in point number 3, increase our production possibility curve. Discovery of these new resources will increase our productive capacity. Okay. Economic growth, incorporating machines to increase production of goods and services, will also allow economic growth to take place and would also cause this production possibility curve to shift outwards. All right, and technology. If there's advancement in technology, more goods can be produced through these different automations, and that will definitely increase our production possibility curve. So we did look at all of this last week. You were able to read up on well, the textbook. I hope you all are able to get your textbooks. I had recommended a few for you all. Okay, so make this a duty that by the new term, you all have your textbook, so you all can obviously do that extra reading. The slides are here. It will always be here, but for you all to improve on your understanding and enhance your understanding, the textbook you will see something new, a new explanation on a topic area that may be giving you all problems. All right. So the 2 authors for the econ textbook, we have the Economics for CSEC by Edward Bahau, as well as the Patricia Gopi textbook. For those who are asking via the chat, right? If you all need me to show you all a picture of it at the end of class, that is, you all could stay on and I will show you all how the textbook really looked like. Good. So we are kind of through with the production possibility curve. That was your homework. And if you have any questions, you all could obviously let me know. But I'm sure you all were probably asking yourself as well. Let's just give us reasons why the production possibility curve will shift outwards. But what could cause the production possibility curve to shift inwards? Why would it, or how would it decrease? Chances are you were not able to increase your production. There was probably obsolete technology, outdated technology. There probably was depletion of resources. What else? What else you can think of that would cause this? I told you how to look at this PPC, right? To look at it like, think of a hungry man who keep increasing and increasing the consumption of food. Obviously, it will move from one point to the next. Their belly will move from one point to the next. But what would cause that to decrease? What will cause, this economy to have this decrease in resources? So I'm going to look at the chart here to see if. All right, so I'm seeing unemployment. So if people are unemployed, not much goods and services may be produced. If there's a high level of unemployment, not many goods and services can be produced. As a result, that will, yes, decrease the number of resources within an economy. Very good, Nathan. Depletion of resources. So you were not able to, discover new resources. Let's say you discovered it, but you didn't make full use of it. It got depleted over time. It's no longer useful. So in other words, you just wasted that resource. All right. So depletion of resources will also cause the PPC to decrease. And when I mean decrease, it will shift inwards. So the diagram is not here on the slide, but could you all visualize? And I know you all have that artistic views, right? You see in this diagram here, all right, it's showing PPC moving from 1 to 2, showing an increase. how would you show this PPC decreasing? How would it move from an outward shift to show what is decreasing, resources are decreasing? What would you do? How would this diagram look like? Could you all take a minute and draw it? Maybe you have your notebooks, right? And if you all want me to see what you all have, you all could just raise your hand and I could look at it. You could send me a picture, or even I can share the screen for you all to draw it, sketch it, that is. How you think it's going to show when we want to show this PPC shifting inwards? Good. This curve that you see as PPC2 will now be shown inside. The arrow will be showing downwards. It will be not showing outwards. It will be showing inwards. Not outwards, but inwards. That is because our resources have decreased. Okay? So you all could visualize that, right? Just in case in the exam you have to draw the two, compare them. Just by raise of hands, you all okay with this so far? Nobody's confused, right? Okay. Well, I'm seeing the thumbs up, so thinking that you all are good. Let us just wrap up this part here now. We just want to look at the production and productivity within an economy. A popular question, these popular terms surrounds economics. It summarizes what the economy is like. How is the production? How is the productivity? Note that there is a difference. So we have production, which is defined as a means by which resources, whether tangible, such as raw materials, or intangible, such as ideas, information, are transformed into goods and services. So you're extracting your raw materials to create goods and services. That's all. That's all what production is telling us. You getting your resources to transform them into goods and services. Yes? And with productivity, on the other hand, it will measure the efficiency in the whole production process. And how we calculate it is the ratio of what is produced to what is required to produce it. All this can be illustrated on this PPC as well. Efficiency, productivity. You can see that by operating on that PPC. And what we said is efficient and attainable, all those different points that we came across in our previous session and in this one as well. We can see productivity taking place on a PPC when it operates on that curve, as well as inside, but not to the best advantage. All right, so my next question is, because there's a difference between production and productivity, and don't worry, we're going to lesson 2 just now. This is just a wrap up of lesson 1. We did this in POB. For those who are doing POB classes with me, we did it just last night. The main division of production. Do you all know that modern economies are divided into different sectors? Did you all know that? Is it new to you guys? We looked at it briefly in POB. Very good. So Kavisha, you're correct. We have three main sectors. We have the primary sector, we have the secondary sector, and we have the tertiary sector. And let's see what these sectors really talk about. So the primary sector is the first stage in an industry that is concerned with the extraction of basic raw materials from the land. So in other words, primary sector, we are all about extracting raw materials from the land, sea, the earth, etc., which are then converted into goods and services. Could you all give me an example of where you all may see the primary sector? You're extracting, huh? We're not making anything yet. We're just extracting it from the earth. Yeah, agriculture. Nathan, that's correct. You could take stuff from agriculture, lumberjacks, mining of oil. I'm seeing your answers here on the chat. So the oil drilling rig in south of Trinidad. In exams, to get the satisfaction of examiners, so you really want to satisfy those examiners, they ask you to explain the primary sector for, let's say, 3 marks. You state what is on the slide, like the first sentence, you can give an explanation. And to get your other mark, to make up your 3 marks, give an example. So in Trinidad, you impressed them already. In Trinidad, the oil drilling rig in south is an example of the primary sector. Yes? I'm seeing your answers here on the chat as well. You're extracting gold and minerals. So for something later on, like to be converted into some kind of good or service. Very good, you guys. So it's all about impressing the examiners. And once you all could impress those examiners, you know that you could more than walk out with a really good mark for the exam. Right? So what do you think the secondary sector will speak about? So if you're extracting it from the primary sector, extraction takes place in the primary sector, what do you think the secondary sector will do? Very good. Nikhil and Angelica, you're going to come across the manufacturing stage here. So that is our second stage. We are going to convert all that we would have extracted from the primary sector and now create the good, or well, the good really. So this sector is mainly concerned with the manufacturing or processing of raw materials. All right. Let me know if you're all okay with that. And then yes, the tertiary sector, which is now the service sector, looks at now you providing that service. So you made the good, sorry, you extracted the good, you now making the good, you're manufacturing the good, and at this stage, we are going to actually provide that service to our consumers. So let me see if I could jog your memories here a little bit. So for those who are doing PUB with me, I'm seeing some familiar names. I want to just ask you guys, well, you know, I have to relate all my different business subject areas together, right? So the note here is saying, this is the third stage in the industry where it can be seen as a link between the manufacturer and the consumer. It is divided into, and I'm going to give you all a hint for these 2 parts, these 2 answers. So we understand that tertiary sector deals with providing that service to the consumer. Yes? And you remember from POB last week, not this week, last week's session, where I made mention to the two main services that you can get from a pizza delivery guy. You remember that example? Well, that will definitely explain the two types of services that you can get. So the first one is direct services. I'm giving you all that first one. And yes, Kavisha, Sami, it is, yes, indirect services. So those are our two services. For those who would have remembered what we did last week in POB, we have two services, direct and indirect. Direct services, where you incur that service for your own sake. So you getting a haircut directly. But the indirect service is received from the benefit of a direct service. Like, how did we experience this service? Was that an excellent customer service? You will only know from when that service has been provided. So that's when we could give feedback. How was that service? We didn't get directly served, but it's because of that service that was initially a direct service. How did we experience it? So like, for example, I was talking about pizza. We experienced a delivery guy bringing pizza for us. The delivery guy did not make the pizza. So do not throw back the pizza in the delivery man's face if the pizza reached by your house cold. But it's a service that he provided, which is just delivery. So that is an indirect service, right? So that's a way to remember the difference between the direct as well as your indirect. Okay. So that will fill in these two blank spaces, direct and indirect. And that basically wraps up our lesson 1 from last week to now. So in the meanwhile, while I'm pulling up lesson 2, you all could ask me any questions by the time while I get lesson 2 slides up and running. Okay, so this is a famous topic that all these topics are good, huh? You're going to see them in the exam. It's not like we are wasting time with these topics. But see, when I say you're going to see this in the exam, you're going to see this for sure in the exam, it's because it's a popular topic area in exam. So let me just share the screen here. Good. So this is lesson 2, where we are looking at markets and prices, demand and supply. Have you all ever came across that topic before? You all ever did it in school? Well, if so, it is going to be a recap for you guys. We are starting from the basic and we'll move our way up as we journey together. So for those who are new to this subject, on the other hand, please pay attention. Make sure you write down whatever additional explanation that I'm giving so you all could actually revise it and understand it for our next session, because we are building from these sessions into, those bigger topic areas in economics. So markets and prices, a simple definition on the market is on the screen, is a situation where two parties gather to facilitate the exchange of goods and services. The parties involved are usually buyers and sellers. We are also saying that a market can also be a group of buyers and sellers of a particular good or service. The elements of a market are as follows. You'll have the buyers / producers, sellers / consumers, goods, services, price. All right. So what we are looking at here now are market forces. So in every economy, whether it be the economy of Trinidad, Tobago, any country that you think of, we will have these market forces. And these market forces will summarize demand and supply. So this is now our introduction to demand and supply analysis. So the term demand and supply refer to the behavior of people as they interact with one another. So think of all these people, all these buyers and sellers coming together to interact. We're not just going to have buyers, we're not going to just have sellers. We will have both interacting in the market. So demand, we hear this term demand and we have a definition here on this slide. We are saying it is an economic principle referring to consumers' desire to purchase a good or service. The consumer is also willing to pay a price for a specific good or service. So I'm stopping there for a while, and I want to explain to you all in depth what demand is basically saying here. You have the situation where you're a consumer. Let's say we like brand name items, or let's say we like food. We love food. We love brand name sneakers. We love these things. But what would you do as a consumer where your favorite food item or your favorite brand name sneakers or clothes increase in price? What would you do as a consumer? Would you buy more of that good or service, or would you buy less? So I'm seeing the majority of you guys saying less. I'm happy for you guys to actually say that, right? You all will buy less. Even though whatever you really love so much, yes, you would buy less. And that's the nature of consumers. When consumers witness price increase and, they're not going to, buy as much anymore because of this whole definition of demand. They were only willing to pay a price when it's reasonable at a particular point in time. So you're all okay with what demand is saying. It is the willingness as well as the ability. I want to put in that word somewhere in that definition. It's also the ability to actually pay for a specific good at a particular price. And then let's just move now our attention to supply, which is on the screen as well. We're saying it is the amount of goods or services producers are willing to offer at a particular price. So let's say, for example, I'm a supplier and I am supplying, give me something like energy drinks, right? Energy drinks for those who like to work out in the gym, because you all don't want to be fat like Miss and keep eating food, right? So I'm providing energy drinks, and you're going to the gym to sell it. And you notice, and I noticing that, okay, my products go in, no matter what price I put to this, um, people are still buying. They want it because they find it working and all these different things, right? So my objective here now is, because my supply is increasing, I am going to be motivated to actually keep supplying these energy beverages. Yeah. So supply is all about, you know, you being able to have a large market to supply your goods and services to. You have that incentive. So suppliers, we can safely say, are profit motivated. So I'm repeating that. Supply, or I should say suppliers, have a profit motive. If prices increase and people are still buying your goods and services, you are definitely going to be motivated to supply more over a given period of time. Yes? So what we can say about this slide is that, all right, so if demand, if a product increase in price, some consumers may not want to purchase it. They might decrease their demand for the good. They're buying it, but there will be a decrease in demand because some consumers just cannot afford it. So we see that when price increase, right? When price increase, demand decreases, right? So basically, what I'm saying is, when price increase, it will lead to a decrease in demand, because some consumers could afford while some can't. So we see it, when price increase, there will be a decrease in demand. But when supply, when we're seeing that consumers, we could actually say that when supply increases, producers may have that profit motive, that when they can increase their supply, they could actually keep selling their goods. They have the willingness as well as the ability to increase their price. Yes, we can actually see that when we see that people want our products, no matter what the price is. Hey, I'm the producer. I could skyrocket my price a little bit more. So what I'm saying is that if price increase, it can lead to an increase in supply. It is because of the profit motive that suppliers have. So once you can understand, you being a consumer, there's no rocket science here. You being a consumer, you witness a price increase. All right, chances are I'm going to decrease my expenditure. I can't afford it. But if price were to decrease, like say, for example, doubles go back down to $3 or $2, what I mean is that just now, you all know what will happen. What are the consequences if doubles price go back down to $3 or $4? You will see more consumers purchasing. But I mean, that really stop consumers if price increase? You'll ever see doubles vendors still have a lot of people in front their stalls, because they are suppliers of this delicious delicacy that Trinidad offers. Not only Trinidad, but you have other countries that may have doubles too. And we are supplying it, And we are observing that no matter what the price is, consumers are still coming to purchase. So we are going to keep increasing our supply. All right, so that's what we are looking at in this topic. Just plain and simple, I'm just introducing, if those who are new to this, what to expect in this topic area. So we can say there is not a very good relationship between price and demand. When price increase, demand decrease, but we can say there's a direct relationship with price and supply. If supply increase, or if price increase, supply will also increase. And we will see that in some slides ahead of this particular slide, right? I'm just going back to the screen here. Okay. All right. So I keep talking about price. So price is just one of the factors that will affect demand and supply. It's just one of the factors. If you all are doing English, well, I'm sure you all speak English, you all know English. If you're not doing it, one of the factors, there are many other factors affecting demand and supply. But we have one factor here, which we're speaking of right now, price. Price is a factor that will affect demand and supply. And we just saw it on the whiteboard and in the previous slide. If price increase or decrease, demand will have an opposite direction. Whereas if price increase, supply will increase. And if price decrease, supply will decrease, because we are not profit motivated. Suppliers are profit motivated, and if price keep decreasing, suppliers will just cease their production. They will cease their supplies to the market. All right, so this is just a basic one factor so far that will affect demand and supply. So what is the price determinant of demand, or what is the price? What is the factor that will affect demand? One of the factors, we have price. What is the other factor that can affect supply? We have price. Let us look at those other factors. Sorry, let me just there are other factors now which are called non-price factors. There are non-price factors that will also affect demand and supply. So we just looked at the price factors, which is price, common sense. What is the price factor that will affect demand? Clarissa, what is the price factor that will affect demand? Price. Yes. What is the price factor that will affect supply? Price. What are the non-price factors that will affect demand? These are our factors here on the left-hand side of the screen, right? These are the non-price factors that will affect demand. And then we have non-price factors that will affect supply. So let us look at these points. Non-price factors that will affect demand: consumers' income. Consumers' income, depending on the amount of income that you get, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a yearly basis, will obviously determine how much goods and services can be consumed if our income increases. How much can we get? But if we have a decrease in income, let's say because of this pandemic, a lot of people were unemployed. Some people may not be able to make the money to just withstand, the entire what was happening in the economy. Income is not price. We're not talking about no more price here. We're talking about non-price. If income increases, you can buy more. You can demand more. But if income decreases, you will demand less. We have taste, we have preferences, the number of buyers. If the market were to have more buyers, let's say taste and preference of consumers want more, let's say fashionable clothing like boots and scarves and shiny stuff. Taste and preference of consumers may increase, right? And as a result, that would increase our demand. But again, you're looking at non-price factors. So these factors here on the left-hand side basically sums up these non-price determinants of demand. So you see it's either determinants or factors, same difference, right? And let's look at supply. What are some non-price factors or non-price determinants of supply? The number of sellers. If we don't have enough sellers, let's say there's not enough doubles people or people who actually will supply goods and services. If there's not enough, chances are they might actually tend to decrease their supply of the good or service. Reason being, you can look at it in both ways. If they have less suppliers in the market and they want to, still supply, chances are, they will obviously increase their supply. But if the number of sellers is low and it's very difficult to get the resources to, satisfy the consumers, chances are their supply will decrease. We have technology, we have expectations. All these different factors can lead to suppliers decreasing their supply. All right. So we will get to this with some diagrams in a bit. I just want to give you all these rules of demand and supply. And we will just take some time to answer any questions that you may have so far, okay? So I'm just looking at the rules. We just looked at it, but we're just looking at it over again. Price and demand. What is the rule? Well, if price increase, demand will decrease. If price decrease, demand will increase. We just looked at that on the whiteboard, right? And you all okay with this? Just let me see by raise of hands, those who are good, who understand what's going on here. Lovely. Good. So no rocket science there yet. Let's look at what would happen with price and supply. If price increase, supply will increase because of the profit motive of suppliers. Price keep increasing, suppliers may have to end up supplying more goods and services. All right. But if price decrease, suppliers may decrease their production. And we will see that, we will understand this a lot better. These few rules of demand and supply using a diagram. So I repeat, for those who are new to economics, we are going to be introduced to our new set of diagrams. Besides the PPC, that was just common sense. We are now going to be introduced to the diagrams of economics. We're starting off with the demand analysis. So again, we are looking at demand and supply, but we're looking at demand here now. So demand, willingness and the ability of consumers to consume a particular good, to purchase a particular good at a point in time. So the law of demand, so I'm gonna go through this here slowly for those who are new to this. The law of demand states that the higher the price of a good or service, the less of these products consumers are willing to purchase. Ceteris paribus. I'm stopping there with a full stop right there. Do you all know what ceteris paribus mean? Sounding kind of French, right? I know we are not in French class, but sounding kind of Frenchy. Yes? Ceteris paribus basically mean all things being constant. Very good, Leon. Equal as well. Ceteris paribus mean all things being constant or equal or unchanged. Nothing else changes. Everything is being equal. So the law of demand, the price, the higher the price of a good or service, the less of these products are willing to purchase. We're just sticking with that, and we're saying that if that is the case, the law of demand, we will see that as price increase, the demand decreases. We're sticking with just those two scenarios. But as the price of these goods and services fall, the more of these products consumers are willing to purchase. So as the price decrease for a good or service, your brand name sneakers, your whatever brand name clothing you all may have, perfumes, colognes, if the price decrease for these goods, the more you might see consumers willing to purchase it. All right, so that's a basic law of demand. Now we are looking at our first diagram to illustrate this whole law of demand. So we're seeing here that this is our demand curve. Let's talk about this curve here. You all seeing that this curve is downward sloping. It is downward sloping from left to right. This curve is downward sloping. That's one mark already in that exam. We have our axes here. The vertical axis is labeled price, and our horizontal axis is labeled quantity. We see origin being 0. All right, you guys, this should really be 1, not 0, but that's 1 to 10 and 2 to 12. Right? The vertical axis is the y-axis. The horizontal axis, yes, is the x-axis. If you want to incorporate a little maths in this. Yes? So it's downward sloping, and this is our demand curve. DC means demand curve. So you all know how much marks you're getting already for just drawing a demand curve in the exam. Econ is a very easy subject to pass, a very easy subject. You just have to note what are the key points to give out when you have to answer these types of questions. The last thing that we have to look at this demand curve is our heading. You can't just draw a diagram in the exam and assume that the examiner is going to know that this is a demand curve. What you have to do is you could either put the heading, diagram showing the demand curve, or you could just put it right below the diagram, demand curve. All right, so axes correctly labeled, price and quantity. You have your origin, you have your downward sloping curve, left to right, and the curve is being labeled DC, which stands for demand curve. All right. So the demand curve, we say yes, it's downward sloping. And do you all know why it is downward sloping? I want to get into the nitty-gritty of everything. I want to know why it's downward sloping. So if in the exam, you know, I'm pressed for time, I must be thinking, is the demand curve horizontal? Is it vertical? Is it upward? Is it downward? Let us understand why it is downward sloping. It is downward sloping because due to price and demand having a negative relationship, which we just looked at the whiteboard, demand and price have a negative relationship. If price increase, demand will decrease. And if price increase, demand will decrease. Yes? So I will be drawing these diagrams when we actually start some questions. But I want to show you all something here very quickly. Just a little sketch of something. Let me just clear all drawings. And I'm just sketching. It's not a drawing class. I'm just going to do this here really fast, just to show you all another way to remember if our demand curve is upward or downward sloping. Just now, let me just draw. All right, so I'm going to have my heading, the demand curve. So I'm just showing you all that diagram we just saw, what you do in the exam when you have to draw a simple demand curve. So you have your axes, you have your label. I'm now going to label my axes. I have my origin, and I have here quantity, and I have on the vertical axis price. The demand curve is downward sloping from, let's say we don't know. In the exam, we do not know. Is it upward or downward? But let me just say, because we know it's downward, we can actually try and make sense of, all right, let me just try it. Let me see if it's downward sloping. Let me just assume. At a price of, let's say, P1, let's say whatever price this is $5. P1 represents $5. Yes? At P1, I am going to demand, oh Lord, that's undo. That's not what I want to do. Wait, I can't remember how I did this last time. Just give me a second. It's supposed to be squiggly lines, right? At P1, whatever price this is, let's say $5, we are going to demand Q1. All right? Okay. But if price increase, let's say from P1, let's say from $5 to P2, and you should have that common sense where to show an increase, you know, it's going to go from here to P2. All right? The price increased. P1 to P2. Let's see what's happening and look at the slow motion I'm going to do to just determine if my demand curve is upward or downward sloping. We say demand and price have an inverse relationship. They don't have a direct relationship. So let's just say, as an example, if price is at $5 and it goes up to $10, would I demand more or would I demand less? Let's see. Okay, so it stops here. Right here it stops. And I'm going to be demanding Q2. So it was originally at Q1, but look, it went to Q2, closer to the zero. So that means only one thing, that demand decreased. So we can safely say, yes, this demand curve is downward sloping because as price increase, our quantity demanded will decrease. It will be less. So you have your axis labeled price and quantity, you have your origin, you have your price. What do you think I'm forgetting? Let me see those who are paying attention to how you can get full marks in this exam. What do you think I'm forgetting to put on this diagram? There's one thing I'm forgetting to do. Yes. Leon, I'm seeing your answer. You're correct. Let me see if anybody else. I'm going to give you all a little half a minute to just give me what am I forgetting to put on this curve. I give the answer already. Yeah, that's always my problem. I'll give the answer while I'm asking for the question. All right. Yes. So the heading is there, demand curve, axis labeled, my points here. What I'm forgetting to do is to label this line. This line is called the demand curve, DC. It is simple to use a line. I know it might be very contradicting to hear the word demand curve and it's a line we see it, but it's a lot easier to really interpret demand analysis by just knowing that your demand curve is a downward sloping curve. It's downward sloping. If you want to be complicated and get your compass out and draw your curve, go right ahead. But I want to make life easier. I want to pass this exam. I don't want to pull up my compass for an econ exam. No, we are going to put the demand curve downward sloping. Yes? So you all okay with this? I'm just going back to the slide. So less effort. Next thing you know, you keep erasing your diagram because it's not looking like a curve. Or if you have, we have limited time in the exam. So just draw your line and note that it is a downward sloping curve. So as price increase, demand decrease. Yes? Let's move on to the next slide. Let's understand now some more about the demand curve. So the demand curve is a graph depicting the relationship between the price of an item and its quantity demanded. All right, so what is quantity demanded? Quantity demanded is the quantity of an item that people are willing and able to purchase at a particular price at a particular point in time. Price causes movements along the demand curve, and non-price factors causes shifts of the demand curve. All right, so let me just understand this second point. So we have quantity demanded. So how we just saw it on the whiteboard, when my price increased from $5 to $10, my quantity demand is going to decrease. And they said that how price, because it moved from $5 to $10, there will be a movement. That's what they say, a movement along the demand curve because price causes the movement. And non-price factors, which we saw it in previous slides, like income of consumers, will cause shifts of the demand curve. So let us understand what is a movement along the demand curve. What is a shift of the demand curve? Let us see what that basically represents. So this diagram is showing us a downward movement along the demand curve. Why we see it a downward movement? It is moving downward. Basically, look, the common sense answer right here. It's moving downwards. But how we know it's supposed to move downwards and not upwards? I am asking the questions that I know past pupils will be asking. But if it's moving downwards, why would it move downwards? How you know it will move downwards? As price decrease. Very good, Trent. I'm seeing your answer. When your price decrease, let's say from P1 to P2, there is going to be an increase in quantity demanded. And when that increases, you're going to get an extension of this demand curve. The demand curve is going to keep extending further and further away from the origin. So, like I like to draw. So I'm just going to go back because I know you're seeing the answer here, but when in the exam, how would you really go about illustrating this? Let me look at the same diagram that we were looking at just now. So I'm moving away. The demand curve, all right? I'm going to show an upward movement along this demand curve. Why am I going to show an upward movement along this demand curve? Is because my price increased from $5 to $10, which causing my quantity demanded to decrease from Q1 to Q2, meaning I'm going closer to this zero origin. So there will be an upward movement along this demand curve from points A to point B. All right, so you see this point and this point here, we're seeing that it's going to go closer and closer to the reach zero. As price increase, quantity demanded will decrease, and there will be an upward movement along the demand curve. Yes, so you can, if you want to write this, draw this diagram here quickly in your books, you are free to do so, whatever note you all may be getting. In addition to what the slide has, you all are free to draw these diagrams. All right. And yes, I'm seeing Ariel saying that an upward movement along this demand curve will cause an undo text. I'm just going to put my heading because you see what I'm forgetting to do. Diagram showing an upward movement along the demand curve. All right, so that's my heading. This is my diagram. My axes are labeled, my curve is labeled, my arrows are indicating what this diagram is stating. So as it keeps moving upward, don't think by common sense, when it moves upward, you're getting more. No, because it is moving upward, it is nearing the original line, which is the zero line. So there is an upward movement along this demand curve. And Daryl, yes, there is a downward movement along the demand curve that can be depicted, which I'm going to give you all to do. So I'm going to pause the recording for a while, and I want you all to take 5 minutes to analyze this, and for you all to draw now a diagram showing a downward movement along the demand curve. All right, so I hope you guys are getting through with the diagram. You're just doing the opposite to what is being shown on this whiteboard here, right? Were you all able to get through? So let me know if you all got this diagram. So I'm going to draw it here now, right? So just give me a second. Right, so I'm just sketching my next diagram. The demand curve is, we say, downward sloping. We have on the vertical axis price. And in my horizontal axis, I have quantity. The name of this curve is called the demand curve. And I have my origin here at 0. I want to show a diagram showing a downward movement along the demand curve. So you want to show a diagram showing a downward movement along the demand curve. So how do we get this answer? Let's say we didn't have this over here. How do we get this answer? Now let's say in the exam you don't know, just draw answers to every not every econ question, but for all the demand and supply analysis question, let's say you do not have the answer, sketch the diagram and you will be able to derive your answers eventually. So I want to show a downward movement along the demand curve. Let's see, originally my price here is at P1, which allows us to demand, let's see, I hit my curve right here and I bring down these lines to Q1. Price is going to decrease from P1 to P2. What will happen? Let's say we don't know. Let's just see what happens when price decrease from P1 to P2. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going until I hit the demand curve. All right, so I hit the demand curve. I can now bring this line down. It's supposed to be a straight line, by the way, you guys. I'm just sketching it here on the whiteboard, all right? So it reached the horizontal axis, and that is going to give us Q2. So because price decreased from P1 to P2, and we got now this Q2, the quantity increased or the quantity decreased? It's away from the 0. It went further away from the 0, more to probably 100 or so, that we just assume. So we can say that when price decrease, quantity demanded will increase. And when that happens, we can put our lovely stamp here, point A and point B. You're not drawing stars in the exam. I'm just showing it to you guys just to show that this is point A, this is point B. When price decrease from $5 to, let's say, $1, our quantity demanded, let's say it was 10, we end up buying 20 because price decreased, right? That will therefore cause a downward movement along the demand curve from points A to B. And this is how a downward movement will look like for your demand curve. We can say that there's an extension. It's going to keep going and going until we run out of probably money or so. But when price keep decreasing, we are going to keep demanding. And when we keep demanding, demand curve is going to extend. There will be an extension of the demand curve, or there will be a downward movement along the demand curve. And we said the opposite will apply if price increase. Okay. So again, you will always have this up on the website. Let me just go back to the slide here quickly so that we can just wrap up at least demand analysis. So we say that only price will cause movements along the demand curve. We spoke about the upward and the downward movement along the demand curve. This one showing a downward movement, while this one is showing the upward movement. And you'll see that my axis is still labeled, my origin, my demand curve. It is still downward sloping, but the only thing that is changing is just my price. And please, if you have a red ink pen, I've always told my students this, and this is something that helps them out a lot. Take your red ink pen and just write in your book, only price causes movements along the demand curve. Highlight it, put it in capital letters, do whatever. You can write it all over your econ book if you have to, but this is very important to note, because in that exam, you're not just going to have price factors. You're going to have non-price factors, which causes something totally different, something that would be completely opposite to what we are seeing here now. So we just look at the price factor that will affect the demand curve, and we have the non-price factor that will cause shifts of the demand curve. And how do these shifts look? Let us just wrap this up with this diagram. So shifts of the demand curve. Hi, Laura, if you all have a question, you can raise your hand and I will answer your question. But let me just finish this last slide out. So shifts of the demand curve, we are looking at price being constant, but price is not the factor we are looking at here. We're looking at other factors, non-price factors that will cause the shifts of the demand curve. So from D1 to D3, sorry, 1 to D3, which is demand curve 1 to demand curve 3, is an inward shift of the demand curve, where less is demanded, probably because we get less income. And from D1 to D2 shows an outward shift of the demand curve. More is demanded at each market price. So let's say your income increase or your taste and preference for a particular type of clothing might increase. You would increase your demand, you would increase your purchase to that item. So as you increase your demand, you are going to shift it outwards. When you decrease your demand, you're going to shift it inwards. All right, so please, for those who are missing out on these keynotes, you have the YouTube video there. Please go up on the YouTube by tonight. Download it. You have to download it. I will show you. If you don't know how to download a YouTube video, check me back in the chat next week. I will show you all how to do it, because this is very important to really note. This is how to determine price factors, non-price factors, how you could determine what will happen to the demand curve. So price will cause movements along the demand curve. Non-price factors will cause these shifts to occur. All right. So these other factors, we say, yes, the income of consumers. I kept talking about this, but there are others. Price of substitutes and complements, taste and preferences. All right, probably during the carnival season, you might see more beach clothing being sold. You know, different seasonal factors will cause different activities to take place. Different parts of the year, different expenditures will take place. All right. So I just want to just stop here on slide 16. We have more to complete for this session, but we will do so next week, please God. We have this topic to really understand before we move on to the other, which is supply analysis. So I'm going to stop here, and you all can make notes of what are these factors that will cause the demand curve to shift. What causes a upward movement? What causes a downward movement? It is just price. What causes these shifts from outwards to inwards? These are the non-price factors. All right, and we will look at some more examples next week, please God. Okay, so that's it for this part. We have not completed lesson 2, but we will continue next week by looking at more diagrams. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can message me on the chat. But for now, that's it for class. Thank you for joining in, you guys. Have a good night.